choked that jig.
Jigs. And one common problem I see a lot of people make is choosing the wrong rod. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Andrew Full, and today we're talking jig fishing, and not so much the jigs itself because that's an entirely different video, but I want to focus today on the setups. What I mean the setup is rod, reel, and line. I feel like a lot of people make this mistake when it comes to jig fishing, and I'm here to simplify, solve problems for you, and help you put more fish in the boat or kayak or even from the bank. Jigs are probably the number one big bass technique going back to basically the beginning of bass fishing, right? You can flip a Texas rig and catch a lot of numbers of fish, but you pick out that jig when you're in a school of fish and you're looking for a bigger bite. So what that translates to is that your numbers are going to go down, but your size is going to increase. And with these tips, I'm going to help you put more bass in the boat fishing a jig.
Well, didn't you say that line's a year old? Didn't you say that line is a year old? Huh? I knew he was there because he bit at the cast before.
So make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow along for more content coming on the weekly here. It's July, we've been guiding, very little fun fishing, so I haven't been able to film a ton of content for everyone, but today we're filming this jig video, so let's get into it. When it comes to choosing the proper setup, you can start one place, and that's the line. Some guys are like, do I want to throw it on braid? Do I want to do braid to fluoro? Do I want to do fluoro? I'm here to tell you your best choice for all situations is 20-pound fluorocarbon. You can get away with 17, 18, even 25, depending on what you're doing. But if you're throwing a jig into wood, fluorocarbon. If you're throwing it into trees, fluorocarbon. If you're fishing docks, fluorocarbon. If you're fishing sparse grass, fluorocarbon. Now, the only time I would go to braid is if you're fishing lily pads or super thick grass and you're throwing a jig that weighs more than 1 ounce. But we are going to dive in just your typical one size half-ounce jig. Doesn't matter if it's an Arky, a football jig, a ball head, a finesse jig. Like, this is gonna be the setup that I use. So the meat and potatoes, right? Get yourself a rod that's 7'2" to 7'6" that has a great parabolic bend to it. And not like your crankbait rod parabolic bend. What I mean is something that rod bends from about the halfway point of the tip, halfway point of the rod length to the tip when you set the hook in these fish. That's going to give you tons of giveaway to really wrench on those fish, but you're also not going to rip the hook out of the fish's mouth. You want something that's medium heavy or heavy. I've mentioned it on the Lure Lab podcast that every rod company makes a different action to power of rod. So if you're looking at a medium heavy in one brand, you may have to buy a heavy in another for what your favorite rod is. So for me, my jig fishing rod is an Alpha Angler Zillevator. It is 7'3", medium heavy, fast action. So fast action basically means instead of just the tip bending, it'll bend somewhere between the third and fourth guide when you feel that bite. So that's your fast action. The action is the overall taper of the rod. So extra fast is tip, fast would be more like a quarter of the rod down, and then your medium or parabolic slow action is going to be all the way through. Now there's load tolerances as well. So like you might have a medium heavy fast in one brand where it's just the tip and you set the hook and it feels like a broomstick. And then some other companies, you're going to set the hook in a fast and that you'll feel when that rod loads up on a fish, the first quarter of the rod kind of bends over, but when you hit them, the whole rod bends all the way down and you can feel it load into your handle. That's what I'm talking about. You want a nice parabolic bend rod that you can give them the beans, hit them as hard as you want if you like the slack line hook set or not on a slack line. That's why I like fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon gives me the best opportunity for shock absorption. If I'm fishing braid, I feel like I rip the hook out of the fish's face way too much. Braid to fluorocarbon, it's the same deal. There is a very particular hook set that you need to do with braid and braid to fluorocarbon to not just pop their mouth open and open it and lose that fish. So that's why I go all the way to fluorocarbon. They say it doesn't stretch. Fluorocarbon 100% stretches just a tiny little bit, so you can hit those fish as hard as you want. And I mean, let's face it, right? Jigs have pretty big stout hooks on them. If you're gonna be popping that face off with braid, it's gonna shoot that jig right out. That's why I like a fluorocarbon, because that's gonna allow just the tiniest bit of stretch no matter how hard you set that hook for that hook to drive home. Now, that being said, if you do have a softer hook set or a wimpier hook set, you're probably going to lose a lot of fish throwing it on fluorocarbon. So if you're using braid or braid to fluoro, you may want to dub down on your hook set just slightly, but I like to hit them super hard when I'm jig fishing. So 20-pound Veravas fluorocarbon, 7.3 medium heavy action rod, 7.2, 7.4, whatever your favorite is. Mine's the Zillevator from Alpha Angler. 8:5-to-1 gear ratio. You can get away with the 7.2, 7.4. I personally like these 100 or 150 size reels. They fit my hands really well. Yeah, you want something that's going to have extremely stout drag in order to rip them out of the cover as well. But in my opinion, fluorocarbon is number one. Number two is having the proper rod for the job, and that's why I like the Alpha Angler Zilla or the Zillevator for fishing a jig. There are plenty of good rods on the market, and if you guys are interested in hearing what they are, let me know down below, because I fished a bunch of different rods and I can send you links to Omnia and anything that we talked about or I showed in this that is available on Omnia will also be linked down below. But let me know if you love jig fishing, what your favorite jig is, maybe your exact setup, because if I see one that intrigues me, I might just have to buy it and try it out for myself to compare and contrast and give you guys an episode like that. So if you'd like to see that, call to action, right? Let me know if you want to see me try a bunch of different jig rods here in the future. So we appreciate everyone who tunes in on a weekly basis to the Full Fishing Guide Service page. You all rock. Hit that subscribe button if you have never been here before. Like I said, I am a full-time guide, so I try to get out a video every week at the very least. Have a couple lined up here that we're working on, so stay tuned for those, and we'll catch you all next week.